Yeah, it's great that GMMTV doesn't think I deserve death, but I'm also not going to bootlick them. Like,
Right,
you know
right.
what I
Like
mean?
it's
Hi guys, welcome to LoveCast, the Boys Love Podcast. I'm your host Pixie, and with me are my co-hosts Alexa and Kayla.
Hey.
hello.
So, for today's tea time, we have a very current topic we want to discuss. It's been happening this weekend, and there's a lot to dive into. A lot.
Yeah.
So, for those who don't know, there is a Pinoy BL festival going on this weekend with how many actors were there? Like,
I think it came out to be like 50-ish was the final number. Originally it was supposed to be 100, and it
yeah, right.
that was the original advertisement. It was like 100 and then like more than 75, and then the total number, the final number is like 50 something. But apparently not even all of them could make it because of ticketing issues. So, that's also something to talk about.
Yeah. And they were originally gonna have this festival earlier this year, but they had to postpone it. And every step of the way, this has been showing that it's the only way you can describe this is that it's an utter shit show.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. Fire Festival BL edition.
Oh my
Right?
God, not Fire Festival.
Maybe even DashCon at this point. Like,
That's
pretty
based
bad.
on like the setup and stuff that I've seen. It's giving very much DashCon energy.
Yeah. So the first thing we heard when the festival started was that the live stream was shit. Like, the quality of it was so bad. It
was
wasn't
like
worth
cutting
the money.
out, all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Second, we heard at the press con, Pavel had to be a translator because they didn't have translators for their Thai actors they invited that they know don't speak English.
Yeah. Yeah. That is just like, here's the thing. First of all, I'm thinking about, there was also like Korean actors there, so I'm assuming that they just assumed that they could speak English, or hope that they could, because who was translating for them? And also, like, Pavel is wonderful. I'm sure he was fine with translating, but I feel like he was put in a situation where, exactly, like, what if he wasn't comfortable with it? He didn't really have the option to say no, because I assume, and maybe they asked him beforehand, but I doubt it, that he was put on the spot.
Asking one of your guests
Actors,
to be a translator without compensating them extra
when they're there as talent,
later, but they weren't he wasn't compensated for this from the information we've been getting. Like nothing. And yes, he is a good guy and he would gladly do this, but you're organizing like an event. You're not gonna force your guests into a situation like that.
Yeah, you shouldn't be.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, and there were
fast forward to day 2. It got even worse.
Yeah. So some actors didn't get their plane tickets.
Yeah. I think it was the cast of Restarted, the series.
Yes.
It ended up only like 2 of the 6 or 8 people that are originally supposed to go got tickets, and like the company was on social media and everything, being like adding Pinoy BL Festival, like, we're having this ticket situation, like, we can't get it sorted out. This was like a couple days ago, and I guess in the end, most of the actors ended up not being able to join because whatever situation was going on, it did not get sorted, and they did not get tickets to go to the Philippines. So
yes. And for day 2, we heard from Twitter, some of the actors weren't coming anymore.
Yeah.
Even though they were there for day
Yeah.
one. And this is because they presumably they're not getting paid.
They weren't getting the
heard.
compensation
Nope.
they were promised. They weren't getting food. There was someone's manager, I think it was Fluke or Guns, posted on Instagram stories that they didn't get to eat until 4 p.m. after an entire day of like doing schedules for the festival, and it wasn't provided for them. They had to go out and eat at a restaurant themselves.
And
you
having
know,
to change.
they didn't get proper dressing rooms. They were getting ready in the bathroom at the stadium, I'm assuming, like.
And for
Which
all
that
those...
feels really unsafe to me, to be
Yeah.
putting the guests in the same location as the fans. I don't know. That doesn't seem like it would be very safe for them. I don't know.
Yeah, and you can imagine with everything else failing, they probably didn't have any security either.
Oh, I doubt it. I really don't think so.
Yeah. So
Also, the other thing that happened that I totally forgot about on the first day, someone during the Q&A section had the audacity to ask Earth about the Two Moons 2 situation.
Listen.
Harassment.
My God.
And I'm like, did you not vet the questions? I mean, I get it. It's a Q&A. You're supposed to, giving fans the opportunity to ask questions, but they should have stepped up and been like, you don't need to answer this or something. Like, putting him in the spot where he felt like he had to address that situation. It's just, that had me fuming.
That is literally disgusting and is continuing to sensationalize that situation that happened to him that probably is very triggering and he doesn't want to be brought up ever. Like, I just don't know how you think that's okay to just ask that. Just outright to anybody.
Yeah. And don't forget, day one we heard that director wasn't coming with his actors.
And then
because
he
they
showed
were
up
a
anyways.
family, because they're a family and they go together. And then he shows up with one of them.
Yeah, they made a whole big, post about canceling the appearance because they move as one and they work as a family. And then he showed up with one of the other actors anyways. And I was like, so what even?
Yeah, I can guarantee, he knows, he's good friends with one of the organizers. So I think that he knew that the actors who came to this festival weren't going to get paid. Well, at least not the promised amount.
Yeah.
And that's why he pulled his actors out, and he probably made a deal with the festival people that he could at least get him and one more paid for if they came.
Yeah. I wouldn't surprise me. I mean, for all of the amount of money that they charge for the tickets for people to be at that event, the fact that they still haven't been able to compensate the artists. They don't have any type of setup on the stage. They just have screens. There's no lights. There's no decorating. There's no anything else going on in the stadium. They haven't paid the artists. They haven't paid for catering, apparently, translators. So, where did all that money go? It's giving very suspicious vibes to me.
Yeah, it's weird.
Yeah,
it's weird.
I mean, we've had bad interactions with one of the organizers before, so we were kind
Always
of
skeptical.
This.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I am so sorry for the actors who have to go through this, and I'm so afraid that this will give a negative impact on international fans for the Thai and Korean industry, BL industry, which will make it harder for everyone else when they are so unprofessional. Can they just stop? They obviously have no idea how to organize stuff.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate with this being one of the first international fan meets happening after everything got postponed with COVID, and that this is the experience that so many of the actors are having with it. It's like, it really does leave a bad taste in your mouth. And there's supposed to be another convention in the Philippines later this August, which two separate conventions. Yes. And so far it seems that the Raycon Fan Con is on a very different level and actually knows what they're doing. But like, you know, I'm sure they're feeling impacts from that as well. They've tweeted about people attacking them, thinking that they're the Pinoy BL festival. So yeah, it's just unfortunate that it's going to leave a bad taste for other events that are happening.
Yeah, James tweeted, the only thing that keeps me from joining the event today is Philippine fans, which just like makes me so sad, because I know that a lot of them probably feel that way, like they have to go through with it or they'll be letting fans down. Yeah. But I think at this point fans would be pretty understanding, because it's not a good situation for anyone, even the fans who are there.
Yeah, for real. Yeah, it's just, I feel so bad for the talent, and like, it just sucks. I mean, hopefully they're still at least being able to enjoy their time in the Philippines and doing things outside of the con, but I'm sure a lot of them were excited about getting to meet fans for the first time, and after so many years, and you know, then they get mistreated on such a major scale. It's just so disappointing.
Yeah. And I'm not usually for the whole cancel culture thing, but like, if these people disappear, like the organizers of this event disappear, I will not cry about that. Like, they deserve to get, like, because they obviously don't care.
Yeah.
No.
I mean,
like, there's something about like being kind of new to something and not like having perfect, but this is so gross neglect.
This is not just like things that are out of their control. These are things that they clearly did not care to organize that should have been essential to the event.
Yeah.
Yeah. It makes me wonder if anyone signed contracts, because you usually would for appearances like this.
Yeah.
But who even knows at this point?
Yeah, it's just...
It's bad.
I'm
I
really
hope that
curious.
they don't get like a bad impression of the Philippines or Filipino fans either from this. Like, that's the part that really makes me the saddest to think about, is that they could have a bad view of the Philippines or Filipino fans from this one experience.
Yeah,
I'm really curious to see if they will address anything, because, you know, scrolling through the hashtag, the Pinoy BL Festival hashtag, which they have been promoting, half of the tweets are people, international fans and fans who have attended the event the same, bringing up the issues and demanding an explanation and demanding an apology to the artist. And so far it's, you know, the second day of the event has finished and they haven't said anything on their official account. So are they going to address it, or are they just going to ignore it until and keep retweeting the good posts with like the artists and stuff that make the festival look good, and ignore all the calling out that's happening within the tag?
Yeah, I just hope that if they don't deliver on whatever they are owed the actors and stuff, that someone will sue them. Like, can someone please
swear to God?
Like, even the fans, like, who went to the event, fucking sue them because they didn't deliver on what they promised. Like, there are tweets that said there were gonna be 100 actors. There are so
false
much
advertising.
Information. Yes. And originally, when they said they were going to have it earlier that year, they waited until the very last minute.
It was like days before it was supposed to happen, wasn't it? That they were like, I mean, people had assumed at that point because they hadn't put out any information, but like their socials were basically like silent for like a full month, and then they came back and were like, we have to postpone for 3 more months, and like these 3 extra months, and you still weren't able to put together a functioning convention.
And people were calling them out on Twitter, and they like were being all, I don't know, sassy back, like that's not customer service, like just like say something to like clean it up. You're not gonna like blame the fans for being disappointed that you're not doing what you promised to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's a mess.
It's a fuck. And
so bad.
believe me, this is not going to be the last we hear.
There's still another day of the convention, so we'll see what happens tomorrow. Right now, we're only on day 2 of a 3-day convention, so I'm sure it'll be...
I just hope the actors get so annoyed that they start, like, really shit-talking on Twitter.
I said that if anyone is going to do that, it's going to be Saint. Because there has been talk that the Secret Crush on UCast was treated slightly better, but I also have heard that that's because Saint created a fuss over it. I'm not sure like where that information was from, but also I know that those actors got fed because the fans organized like food events and stuff.
I saw. Yeah, I mean Saint, he knows what he's owed. Like he's not gonna let anything like just brush under like, and he's like, if anything, when he gets back to Thailand, he's gonna talk about it.
I hope so. I hope someone does.
He really should.
I need like if anyone wants to come on our podcast and give an expose about your event, your experience at this event, we will let you rant. You know
what?
Yeah, but like a little bit serious here, if there are any, like even just if you were at the event as a fan, if you want to talk to us, send us an email and we will do a whole episode about this. We will get all the information, all the tea, and we will do a whole ass episode. So if anyone has any information, any stories, let us, like, give it to us. Like, you can DM us on Instagram, Twitter. It's all open. We have an email. Just get us the information. Thank you.
You want the tea.
Yeah. It might sound petty, but it's actually a big deal that the guests and the fans are being treated this way, and we don't want to allow something like this to happen again.
Yeah,
it shouldn't be swept under the rug. This should be talked about. It should be like, it's like if we can make sure that all these Thai actors and everyone there know that this is not okay and this is not normal, then it might like save us. Everyone,
we have, we have somewhat of a platform within the BL community, albeit a small one. So like, obviously we always want to bring voice to issues that are happening and mistreatment that is happening. And this is clearly something big that is happening. So if anyone ever wanted to say something about it, we are a platform that you could always come to voice your feelings for sure.
Yeah. Absolutely. All right. So off to something a little better. So we are talking about Pride and the BL community today.
Yes. Wrapping up our Pride month, with it being the end of Pride this month, I feel like we just kind of wanted to tie things in with talking about how we feel being part of the BL community, how that impacts Pride, how those two things interact, and kind of just summing up all of our feelings about both topics and how they kind of come together, I think.
So, what does Pride usually look like within the BL community?
A lot of rainbows.
Yeah. I mean, I think you'll get that with any... it's always a thing once Pride Month rolls around that every company and their mother suddenly has a rainbow icon on social media. So I think definitely from the company standpoint, it can be a lot of like rainbow capitalism and, changing your icon is a way to show support, but it's also like a very superficial way to show support.
I can say, like, I own a business, and I find it really hard to balance something like that, because you
Yeah.
want to support, you want to visibly support, because that's part of normalizing stuff. But at the same time, I don't want to take advantage of Pride and everyone.
Right. Like using the month
Yeah.
to
gain something, because
Yeah,
that's
which-
not the point.
Yeah,
Support
and that
the
is what a lot
point.
of companies do, unfortunately, with like their Pride collections and such. Like, I think you can tell when companies are coming from a very superficial, like, we're just jumping on the bandwagon to make some extra sales during the gay month versus, you know, when there's genuine support and wanting to show support coming from the company. So, in general, I think that when it comes to like BL production companies, they do tend to be more on the genuine side, and like I think, you know, that should be the bare minimum with them profiting off of queer and LGBTQ stories. But you do definitely see those moments of like the more capitalistic side of it coming through, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they've gotten better at like the companies and that do BLs have gotten a lot better at showing representation and not just like earning money off of doing the BLs. Like the last 2 years, there's been a lot more supportive content rather than money grabbing content.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely have seen a shift in the last couple of years.
Yeah. Obviously, it benefits the companies to show like that strong allyship. It wouldn't benefit them to be like vehemently against being gay. Like that would just that wouldn't work. So like I feel like it's great that GMMTV doesn't think I deserve death, but I'm also not going to bootlick them. Like
Right.
you know what I mean? Like you said, it is the bare minimum, and I almost feel like a lot of the time, unless they're going really hard with it, you shouldn't even praise the companies for doing what they're supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I see that a lot with people like keeping lists almost of what companies changed their profile pictures, who has tweeted happy Pride on, and that's the same with the actors too. And I'm like, I get it, you want to see like a company that produces a show you like or an actor you like you know, tweeting or changing their profile picture in support of Pride, but I feel like we do kind of tend to put them on a pedestal when they do so as like my fave, you know, tweeted in support of Pride, and I'm like that's what they should be doing. Like, you know, it shouldn't just, you know, it shouldn't be this thing that makes them like a god amongst men type situation.
If you want, like, it should be that there is support all year round.
Yeah,
Like,
not just during one month.
It shouldn't be like a Pride Month thing. And it's like it's the same with like when they have like Women's Day and all that, like it should be
Black History Month and all those.
like every day is like white cis man appreciation day all year round, apparently, but everyone else has just like gotten 1 day or 1 month or like can we just like appreciate everyone all year round the same amount?
Yeah, because like are they showing this same level of support once June is over, and are they tweeting the same way about LGBTQ issues once June is over? I think for the actors, a lot of them do, and that's appreciative, but I think the companies, it's a little bit different. You don't really see that same level of some of them, you know, I think especially this year, with the marriage equality bill being such a huge issue in Thailand this year, I've seen a lot more in general coming from different levels of like companies, artists, management teams and such. But in general, I think, you know, you do see the shift of once June is over and they change their profile picture back to their regular one, the type of content they tweeting or are posting about becomes a lot different. So
yeah, I mean, the people that are doing it right are like the companies who put the issues into their shows, just like PewDiePie did.
Not me.
Yeah, not me.
Although I was like, that was Nucci, not GMMTV, so I don't want to give GMMTV praise for that one. Because GMMTV, on the other hand, does not have the greatest track record, I think. But yeah, and I think, we've seen from companies like Beyond Cloud, they have been doing like a Pride Talk series, which I don't know if they ever released Beyond. There was one episode that was with Tong and Sprite, who plays Yoke in the series, and kind of going over history and terms and stuff like that. So I think something like that is cool and kind of takes you beyond just, changing your profile picture. So it's nice to see when companies take the time and artists take the time to be involved in things like that. I think it goes a little bit beyond the surface level. But, there's not many companies that you see doing that kind of stuff.
Yeah, because that content like that doesn't feel like content they're gonna earn a lot of money doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So it's obviously more for actually fans and actually showing support rather than... Yeah, it feels more genuine coming from a company.
Yeah, I agree.
And like we do have like the actors who have like Pride photo shoots. Obviously, like Max Toll have been huge. Like they are like, especially Toll. He's like all year, every day supporter, always.
Yeah. I mean, I think they're always one of the good examples of like genuine allyship beyond just, I mean, obviously, I love the Max Tool Pride photo shoots. I've looked forward to them for the past 2 years and they never disappoint, but it also like goes beyond that, and I think they show their support in a lot more ways than one. They talked about it recently in the Teen Vogue article that Casey did, talking to different BL actors with Pride and what they feel like their platform is for and how they use it. And, they've shown it too. Like Tool was in New York last year and he went to Pride, and, stuff like that is kind of just, it goes beyond just, it feels more than just superficial, I think. And there are definitely other actors that do that as well. And I think, like you said before, Pixie, a lot more in recent years we're seeing it. But yeah.
Yeah. Can we do like a small appreciation for like the magazines and stuff that are actually like embracing BL into the queer content? Because often BL is seen as like outside of queer.
Separate thing.
Yeah. And looked down upon because it's, people are very like, it's for women, it's by women and nothing else.
It's like, for straight people kind of thing is like how they look down on it. I think it's it's queer content for straight people, even though that's not true because we're queer people here that consume BL content. So it's like, But yeah, it's been really cool to see like BL being included in the Pride discussions. Like, not to plug, but we were in an article for Insider where we talked about like the BL community as a safe space for queer people in the LGBT community and how it's impacted us. Casey, who was our friend, has written numerous articles for Teen Vogue about BL, and he's written pieces for their Pride pieces, Pride series, I guess is the word this year. Yes. So it is really cool. Yeah.
Yes, and one of those pieces, Kayla was interviewed. With Copter. How does it feel to be mentioned in the same news article as Copter?
Listen, I love Copter so much, and I feel like being a part of that article and getting to know like everything that they were saying about their journey made me love them even more. And just made me feel like they are such an inspiration, and that I hope they're able to inspire others through telling their story to Casey.
I teared up when I was reading that article. I think it's one thing for obviously their coming out was huge, and I think it was an amazing thing for them to do, but then being able to further get that perspective of where they've been on their journey and how they've been feeling and what it took for them to finally come to the place where they like could embrace the term non-binary, and I was just like an emotional wreck reading that article yesterday. I was like in my feelings, and it was really cool to also get like Kayla and then another non-binary BL fan who Casey also interviewed from Japan, kind of giving their perspective on what that feels like as a BL fan to have someone who identifies the same way you do and being open about that on their platform. So
Yeah. I mean, if anyone who's listening haven't read any of Casey's articles, you should go do that. Like his articles about BL and Thai BL and all that. It's so good. Like he pours his whole soul into those articles. It's so good. You need to
he's
read.
great. Yeah.
For it's for Teen Vogue he writes, right?
Yeah, for Teen Vogue. Yeah. There's so many times where I see tweets that are like, oh, like someone in Teen Vogue is writing about BL, and I'm just like, oh, yep, that's Casey.
Yep.
Yeah. But no, it's been like, I think the copter coming out has been probably, I don't know if saying it's like one of the highlights of Pride Month is a weird thing to say, but I feel like a BL actor coming out, because obviously we know there are queer BL actors, there are actors in BL who are out, but I think, you know, as far as I know, this is the first out non-binary actor who is involved in the BL community, so I think that is really huge, and them being out and open with that, and they are a big, like, they're a big, what's the word I'm looking for? They have a platform, a large platform. Yeah, they have a large place in the BL community. So I think it's going to do a lot for a lot of people, and I'm just like really,
especially in Thailand for the fans there.
Yeah.
Where it's not as normalized.
Yeah. So I think it's just like really cool that they felt comfortable like sharing that part of themselves with us now, and it's been really cool to follow their experience with it, I think.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So we have actors who have supported marriage equality by posting on social media, using their platforms. Some have been attending Pride.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which is awesome.
Yeah. I think this year, especially like I mentioned before with the marriage equality bill being on the forefront of like moving forward, and it did, I think, eventually pass the first step to move forward in deliberation, which is huge for them because in so many years past it keeps getting striked down in favor of like a civil union more type situation, which we know does not have the same level of rights for LGBTQ couples. So I think early in June, especially before it was being voted on, there was a lot of actors. There were sites that people were promoting, petitions that were going out. I mean, I know there was the shout out in Not Me, where there's like the QR code that you can scan that would take you to the site that had the petition for marriage equality. So I think this year, especially with that bill being on the forefront of like Thai news and Thai equality, the equality fight, there's been a lot of support from actors coming out for that. So, yeah.
Yeah. And I feel like I really appreciate them coming out as strong as they have because as far as I know, there aren't any workplace protections in Thailand if you are part of the LGBTQ plus community. So in a way, they could be jeopardizing their job or position, even if they're not LGBT themselves, just coming out in support of it. I think people forget that just because Thailand puts out so much BL that it isn't particularly LGBTQ plus friendly socially.
Yeah.
And so it is a big deal, I think, when actors post about marriage equality and stuff like that.
Actors do use social media a lot to support. And it's obvious, like we said earlier, this is like a sort of new phenomenon. Like it's been ramping up more the last 2 years, and it's really nice to see because it at this point a lot of it feels very natural. It feels like it's actually like coming from them, like it's not just like a promo kind of thing like you have to do. I think a lot of the actors that are coming into BL now too do have more information about the genre and the expectations. Like you're not gonna come into this industry and be a homophobe.
Yeah, I would hope
You would
not.
think.
I mean, we've definitely met those actors in the past who, despite being in a BL, have some choice opinions about the community in real life. So yeah, I mean, I would like to think it's also like partially coming from a back end of wanting to support and give a voice to people who are genuine supporters of the community and such. And not that it's not just surface level to, keep the BL facade going. And like we said, you would think at this point, being a BL actor, you shouldn't be able to get away with that at the very minimum if you're a homophobe. So, you want to believe it's more than just for the sake of their job, although we've seen in the past that sometimes it's not always that way. But I do definitely think, and even just with the changing times in general, we're seeing much more vocal progressiveness coming from celebrities, not just in Thailand, but everywhere. But I think in Thailand as well, just because that's where we're focusing on mainly when it comes to BL. But yeah, I think that progressiveness in general, with the political climate everywhere the past couple years, people have been a lot more vocal in their progressive beliefs, and I do think that is a necessity at times like these.
Yeah.
Yeah, there is like a unrest in the world about topics like this now. I think like everyone is getting more opinionated, sort of like people aren't cowering or feeling like they have to hide as much as before. Like they're finding their voice, and it's what do you say? It's provoking a lot of people who liked it how it was before, when not everyone was speaking up. So you see a lot of bad shit happening. And I mean, now we got the news yesterday that in Oslo there was a shooting in like a gay district, and 2 people died. 19 were sent to the hospital with severe injuries, and they had to cancel the Pride parade today because the police found that there was like evidence that it might be more than that one person. And remember, like, if for Americans, like, guns are everywhere. Norway, like, it is hella difficult to get a hold of a gun. So, but this shooter had one gun, one weapon. So at least, like, it was just 2 people that, it's bad to say just because it was 2 people who died because of this, but it could have been a lot worse. But yeah, I have never experienced something as bad as this, and I know everyone is really shocked because this doesn't happen here. And I think it's like a wave that we sadly are seeing from America, especially with everything going there. It's sort of like causing like a ripple through Europe.
Unfortunately, Donald Trump has given a voice to a lot of people who, like you said, were previously very quiet about their feelings. And yes, it started in America with a lot of alt-right groups becoming a lot more visible here, although they have always existed. He just emboldened them to start putting a lot of their plans into action, and unfortunately I think we are seeing the ripple of that in other countries where those alt-right people have been previously like sticking to their online communities or lurking in the shadows and such. And so as vocal as they are getting on the alt-right, I think that's also why it's as so important for people on the other side, the progressive end, to be as vocal as they are about equality and gun control, although that's, a different conversation completely. But having those voices with a platform and making your thoughts on those things known, I think, are more important now than ever because the other side is also getting louder. So, it's a way to fight back, I think.
Yeah. And I've always thought about my place in the in BL in the community as like a straight woman and around a lot of LGBTQ plus people. I've always I felt like I shouldn't impose kind of thing, like I shouldn't be here, but I obviously I found my place now, and like for everyone who feels that way, you shouldn't, like there's a place for everyone here. And I think a lot of people who might think they're straight might figure out if they are actually talking with people in the community that they probably aren't as straight as they think.
Yeah, I definitely think there is a space here for exploring and for everyone, and the voices of straight people and straight BL fans do have their place. And I think it's just, when we're talking about stuff like that, making sure you're centering the right voices. So, you have your voice as a straight woman. There's straight men somewhere who like BL, cis people who like BL. They have their place within the community, but they also, it's just important to recognize and put to the forefront the LGBTQ plus voices and the non-cis voices, and especially when we're bleeding into real life inequality, which BL is directly tied to those things and directly profiting off of those things. I think when it comes to those conversations, your voice is important, but it's also like more important to center the voices of those in the community in that situation. And I think that is something that a lot of the BL community still has to learn, and is still working on learning, and it's a process. But, I think especially in these times, it's like more important than ever.
Yeah. I feel I haven't, personally, I feel like I have it easier to put myself to the side and let other people talk when I actually know, I'm so familiar with the community now that I feel comfortable just not being super opinionated about stuff like that.
Yeah.
Because it's really
going against the nature of your nickname.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, sometimes you can get really opinionated and really passionate about something that you think is true, but it's not involving you. So you don't really know. You just listen to maybe one person saying their view of the situation. So that's why if it's not it's not you, then you can support, but you shouldn't stick your head in there.
Yeah, I think on the other side of it also, the BL community can be a little gatekeepy. Especially with the queer fans of BL. I think even I have been kind of gatekeepy at times, but the fact of the matter is that we genuinely do need allyship and help and support from the outside. And that help and support, I don't think should be undermined, because people are just trying to help. People are just trying to normalize these things. No one is really trying to claim anything for their own.
Yeah, I agree.
So what does true allyship look like?
I mean, I think that's kind of what I just said, of showing your support, but also making sure you're centering the right voices. And I think for the actors themselves, and if we're talking going back to the production company and actors and people who are involved in the BL production side of things and benefiting from the community, I think it's big to make sure that your actions go beyond just social media. And so whether that be donating to a cause or going out to a pride or a protest, although I know those things have safety issues and it's not always possible for people to attend pride and accessible for people to attend protests, whether that be, you know, reaching out to your governmental representatives and making sure that your voice is heard that way, donating to causes, even just showing support to LGBTQ people outside of social media. It can be the most personal one-on-one conversation that no one else knows about. But I think if you yourself know that your allyship is more than just performative and more than just a social media post for likes or for the sake of looking good for your fans and such, I think it just needs to be more than just on social media, and I think that's a big thing in my books that people can do to show genuine allyship.
Yeah, I do think like the point of calling out like the everyday homophobia is like the it's the best place to start if like you're like unsure. If you hear anyone in your like close circle or whatever being homophobic, even if it's a small thing, like just calling it out, even if that person is just going like, what's wrong with you? Like if you just keep calling it out, at one point they're gonna start listening.
Yeah. I think people don't realize how, especially if it's like within your one-on-one friend group and you know a friend of yours uses a slur or talks about LGBTQ people in a not so nice way, I think that people don't often realize how much of a difference like not being afraid to say something can do, and how much that can shift the mood of the conversation if it is steering into a homophobic place. So I think people don't realize how much impact having something like that can, saying something in a situation like that can have, especially because you never know if you're in a group of your peers who might not identify the way you thought they identified and how they might be being impacted by another friend in the group using inappropriate terms or speaking about the queer community in a specific way. So yeah, I definitely think those little everyday occurrences and speaking out against them have more impact than people can realize.
Yeah, I think like what we said earlier, when companies or probably actors more so are showing support for LGBTQ plus issues all year round, that consistency is going to mean a lot more than just like a singular happy Pride Month tweet or something like that. And I also like think of just like all the times that we have had like BL actors or like writers and stuff on and have asked straight up about like the role that LGBTQ plus representation has in BL. And I feel like no matter like how complex or simple their answers may have been, it speaks volumes that they're even willing to talk about it and have that discussion.
Yeah, I agree.
So, do we have any like examples on times where we feel like actors or the industry has been showing like true allyship?
I just totally lost my train of thought.
Like the first thing I think about like is obviously Tall, because he shows support. Like we said earlier, he is so supportive, and not only for the LGBTQ plus community, but also for women.
Yeah. I think he is vocal about a myriad of issues. And I always kind of think of, even though I just talked about how doing more than just posting on social media, I was thinking about his post last year from his Pride photo shoot, how he had this whole like paragraph of like 5 different points, like bullet points about like his platform as a BL actor and what he hopes for from the community and how he hopes people will step up and embracing aspects of the LGBTQIA etc. identity that aren't showcase as much. Like, he mentioned, like, asexual and people on the ace spectrum and non-binary people, and like this whole long post just like going into detail about like what he wants his platform to be and what he hopes he'll see from other actors and his fans and people in general. And even though it was like a social media post, I think, you know, knowing what we know about Tool, we know it is, you know, way more beyond that. But I think also just like seeing someone be so passionate about the community and being an ally to the community is just like a really cool thing to see.
Yeah, I agree.
I can't think of like exact instances, but I also think about highlighting the openly queer actors that we do have and other types of creators like directors, etc. in the BL community.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah. I kind of want to mention too, because it's been on my mind a lot. Like, with the semantic error in South Korea, the actor, like, oh God, I can't remember his name, the one that went to the military.
Soham?
I'm so bad with Korean names. You have no
Soham,
idea.
yeah.
Yeah, like he mentioned that like he had the opportunity to do a BL before, but his company turned it down because of the social stigma. And now with semantic error, things had changed, so he could finally, like, because he wanted to do it the last time too, and he's like always shown a lot of support for it as a genre.
Yeah.
And I really, really like enjoyed seeing how positive and supportive he talks about BL and his role in semantic error.
Yeah, I think when you're talking about Korean actors, especially when they're idols, and knowing how much say their company often has over the projects that they can take on, even the things that they can say, it's a big thing for an actor to obviously star in a BL, but also go beyond that and say that, you know, I know there was an interview with June from Ace, who was in Tinted with You, where he, you know, showed support to the community and vocally, you know, came out and said that he doesn't see anything wrong with that type of love. And like we said, that is like the bare minimum. But I think when you're thinking about K-pop idols and how heavily regulated everything they say is, to have idols who are like being vocal in that way is very, very big, and I definitely think it's really always fun to see.
I think it was a big thing for Holland to do a BL as well, because it was sort of tying together the queer community with the BL community in Korea, and I really love that.
Him being in a BL was big, and getting to see an openly gay actor play a queer character in a BL series is in Korea and South Korea is really cool to see. And I also think he's an example of how the climate in Korea is right now, because during that promotional period, you know, he was the victim of a hate crime, where he was called a slur and attacked physically, in an area that is known to be more progressive and foreigner friendly in Korea. So, you know, I think not to use his pain as an example, because that is something no one should ever have to experience. But I think it is an example of how BL is one side of things, and Korea being able to produce BL is big, and I think it does have an impact and will make an impact in some ways. But on the same time, the actual queer people in Korea are still suffering greatly from the country's homophobia, individual homophobia, and those kind of things that happen. So it's just another thing that showcases why I think support, while BL is a big support and it is a big thing, the support needs to also go beyond that to the real people who are existing in this world and experiencing these real issues. So,
Definitely. So as like a last questions, do we have like any predictions for next year's Pride?
I hope at that point marriage equality will be, I'm not sure entirely how the Thai government works, how long of a process it will be, but I hope within a year's time there will at least be further along in the process of the marriage equality bill moving forward, and maybe at this time next year they'll be able to celebrate it being a thing as opposed to just celebrating it taking that first step forward in the deliberation process. So that would be a huge thing, I think, if that's something that is coming around within a year's time.
Yeah, I just hope that things are gonna move forward. I'm really afraid with how like the political climate has been around the world, that we are moving backwards into the Middle Ages, and it's not good. So I do hope that next year we will see some sort of, that it's just like moving in the right direction, that it's not like taking rights away from people, that like this abortion thing in the States isn't gonna follow up into like marriage for gay people.
Yeah. I lost my train of thought. I was just gonna say something and I was like, I completely lost it. Oh, I was gonna say, it seems like with the whole marriage equality thing in Thailand heating up, that I think probably even more people than before are going to be vocally advocating for this to finally be passed, if it's not already passed by the next Pride Month. I think that the support in the BL community is just going to keep increasing until it's like you would be the odd one out to not say anything.
Yeah. And I think that's a good thing, you know, like for so long, no one batted an eye if, you know, people were silent on LGBTQ issues or making weird homophobic remarks. But I think normalizing, you know, having allyship be the norm and having it be the weird thing to not be the person that speaks up, I think is big, and that's a step in the right direction. So I hope it will only continue.
Yeah. And I want to like give people like thing like I hope they will do, because I've seen this. I hope that people, instead of focusing on finding out who which actors are posting what and which company is supporting what, rather focus on your own support of the community instead of going out and being mad, because Pride isn't about being angry. Pride is about celebrating.
Yeah, you can only control your own actions at the end of the day and what you're doing to give back.
Yeah, like make sure you're reflecting on yourself before you are, you know, spending all your time tweeting at BL actors and their fans for what they are and aren't doing.
Yes, definitely. Okay, so that's it for our episode this week. Let us know your thoughts about Pride and the BL community in the comments below, or tag us on social media. If you enjoyed this episode, please rate, review, and follow us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Sharing this episodes with your friends really helps us out. Thanks for joining us for this week's episode, and we'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye-bye.
That should be plenty of time. Yay!
Okay.
That's a good idea.
I was like, wait, I have a part like sitting back here. Okay.
Person.
Yeah.
Dog.